So, gentlemen, it's Reckless Speculation Thursday here, and I got to say, originally on the schedule, on the scripted plays for today's show,
Yep.
we had keys. We had keys all scheduled, and it's possible that Judd's keys could still make an appearance here, but when ESPN.com drops an article about predicting offseason quarterback dominoes, it includes the Minnesota Vikings. I think it is our duty.
Yes.
Reckless speculation.
To dive into this. We also have a Pro Football Focus piece from a couple days ago speculating on a Vikings quarterback trade this offseason. So let's start with the ESPN.com one here from Bill Barnwell. And the title of the article, it centers mostly around Rodgers and Russell Wilson, but it's NFL quarterback offseason dominoes for 2022. Here are multiple scenarios, and again, it leads with Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. So Rodgers getting traded to the Broncos, Russell Wilson getting traded to the Saints, and all that's great. That's all very exciting. But here are the rest of the dominoes.
Oh, God.
The Vikings trade Kirk Cousins to the Philadelphia Eagles for a third-round pick. Or, I'm sorry, a first-round pick.
Speculation.
A first-round pick.
Yeah.
I'm just going to read this. I'm actually reading this for the first time. Declan found this during the Doogie portion of the show. With Rodgers staying put in Green Bay in this scenario. So this is all stemming from, like, if Rodgers stays put, here are the dominoes. With Rodgers staying put in Green Bay in this scenario, a Vikings team already halfway between contending and rebuilding finally takes an affirmative step in the rebuilding direction. If that happens, I suspect the Vikings will be coming off a disastrous end to the season, one in which they miss the postseason and feel like they're not close to competing for a Super Bowl. That realization would probably come with a change at coach and our general manager. But the biggest decision would be what to do with Kirk Cousins. By trading Cousins, the Vikings would free up $35 million in much-needed cap space. The Eagles have been spry with Jalen Hurts and without any logical quarterback to go after, with all three of their first-round picks in a draft that isn't expected to have superstar quarterbacks. They could opt to try to surround a very good passer with a talented roster in Kirk Cousins. Your thoughts?
First of all, just for a very small portion of those who are tuning in to the show for the first time, that's never going to happen. What are you talking about? What's that trade? No, that's never going to. Now, for the rest of for the rest of those who get it, the reckless
and one more note, like that type of trade happens all the time in Minnesota sports. We just forget about it.
Exactly right. But
literally all the time.
But for the rest of you who tune in for the, you know what? Christmas is great. Holidays are great, right? Reckless Speculation celebrated every Thursday. Right here, Mackey and Judd. Every Thursday.
Sometimes
it's
bonus.
there. Exactly. It's there for you all the time.
Yeah.
And so
that's the disclaimer we always forget. And I should have put that on the Pete Carroll stuff last week. Listen, the Pete Carroll stuff was very much under the umbrella of Reckless Speculation Thursday.
Yes.
And, that clip that Declan wonderfully put out there, just listen, sometimes people just don't know the lifestyle. They just don't understand the lifestyle of Reckless Speculation.
And disclaimer, when this graphic goes out at 10:55 a.m. this morning, there is a Reckless Speculation hammerhead on this trade idea, just so people know and just so everyone else knows.
If you don't
it's not our idea.
Classic Score North.
You clickbait artists.
Clickbait, clickety, click, 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 click.
If you don't get this, and it is, make no mistake, a lifestyle choice. And I won't elaborate at all other than to say Google 1970s Key Party. Because that's what Reckless Speculation is. Sometimes you like it, sometimes you don't, but you end up with the Reckless Speculation you end up with, okay? That's all I got to say about that. Key Party. So my feeling on this is between this one and the Pittsburgh trade, which PFF had, which had, I think, a first and like a third round pick, right? Is that correct?
We'll get to that one. Yeah.
So between those two, I think what we're determining right now is, at least in the world of RS, Reckless Speculation, the going rate on Kirk Cousins is a first round pick, which is extremely intriguing to me. And this, so the very foundation, as reckless and as unlikely as it might seem that the Vikings would move on from Kirk, the very foundation of these ideas, I think, are correct, which is if Rick Spielman like Duke said, he doesn't get fired, but let's say he gets kicked upstairs and Mike is gone, which looks to me to be a likely scenario right now. We are talking about giving the new people in charge complete control, which of course you would, right? So that's why I don't think that we can just dismiss, well, Kirk's going nowhere. That might not be true, because there is a good chance that a new duo would come in, start to look at the contracts, look at Kirk. Kirk would talk to them, right? And Kirk might be much more willing to move on if the two guys, and especially Rick, who signed him, that Kirk bamboozled, I mean, came to play for nicely, if they're gone. So like the foundation of these discussions, to me, actually, while reckless, the higher you get of would he go to the Eagles or would he go to the Steelers, I think makes a ton of sense. Because you're not going to saddle a new GM and coach who don't want Kirk. And from Kirk's point too, he's not going to want to play for people who don't want him.
Yes.
So I actually, if the going rate is a first round pick, this is reckless, but it also makes a ton of sense.
Listen, I mean, this is not hard to see
Reckless speculation.
the landscape on. Now, I don't think it's binary. You know, there's a 100% chance that he gets traded or not. Like, there's a ton of gray area here, and it does depend on what they do with general manager, coach. It matters. I'm sure there's a gray area even in his contract, right? Like, listen, we'd love to have you back at this number so we can build out the rest of the roster. We certainly don't want you back at that number. And all these conversations have to take place over the next couple of months. If they make the playoffs and win in the first round against the Cowboys, that probably sways their decision. But there is a huge decision to make. He has the second highest cap number among any player in the NFL next year, and it's not meant for him to play on. It's meant as a decision marker to either trade him or to re-sign him to a multi-year deal that smooths out that cap number. Mm-hmm. And let me continue on with this here. This is Bill Barnwell, ESPN.com, because there's a second part to this.
Barnwell never disappoints, and this is his
great.
time of year.
This is the lifestyle.
He is Santa Claus.
He's reckless clause.
Reckless speculation.
So he continues and says Cousins would sign a 3-year, $105 million extension with the Eagles. By the way, I can't envision Cousins in that city, in that fan base. I think they would.
I agree with that.
They chew him up.
I don't know.
But they do cycle through guys at times. So
yeah,
I'm with you, but yeah.
He'd be a mercenary. So Cousins would sign a 3-year, $105 million extension, and the Eagles would get their man. Philadelphia would send the worst of its 3 first-round picks in 2022 to the Vikings, who would send back Cousins and their third-round pick in the upcoming draft. So there'd be a pick swap there. The Vikings would be left with 2021 third-round pick Kellen Mond as its only option as quarterback, which could lead to a reunion. A reunion, you say?
Reckless speculation.
Billy Barnwell.
Because the next step in these dominoes falling is Teddy Bridgewater signing a 1-year, $8 million contract with the Vikings. Welcome back. Bridgewater was the starter in Minnesota before a serious knee injury cost the popular quarterback nearly 2 full seasons. And then they go on to talk about the Bradford Keenum stuff. Mond would still get a shot at winning the job, but Bridgewater could be a competent option to begin the season for new coach Kellen Moore. Whoa!
Declan!
Whoa!
Hold on
I did not write this article.
Speculation.
I swear to God, I did not write this article.
I have one question, Declan.
What? Bill
I have
Barnwell?
one question. With your family history, could your heart take all of this?
Yes, I want the risk.
I'd be
Give me the risk.
worried about you the day this all comes down. I'd hate our young friend to have an episode.
Look. My heart issue
about
was the outside of the heart. It wasn't inside the heart, which is good
wanna
for
know.
long-term health. Does not mean I still have to get screenings to make sure my heart is okay. But my heart would want the risk. I'm all for this idea. Oh my God.
So, all right, so Declan would get to reunite with his favorite quarterback ever and his favorite future head coaching option ever. So here's how this would play out financially. The Vikings would, by trading Kirk Cousins, the Vikings would gain a first-round pick, and they would save $35 million to next year's cap. They'd still have to eat $10 million of the $45 million cap hit that he's scheduled now because $10 million is a sunk cost. $35 million would be transferred over to the Eagles. And so with that $35 million, 8 of it would be spent on the 1-year deal for Teddy Bridgewater, but it would leave you with $27 million in 2022 cap space. Right now, you're like $10 million over. So this trade would net you a first-round pick. It would net you, let's see here, $17 million under the cap. And then there's other things you could do, too, to free up more cap space. So that you go get a right guard in his prime, right, in free agency.
Yep.
Now, you'd be taking a step back in 2022 because Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback than Teddy Bridgewater, and he's a better quarterback than the unknown of Kellen Mond.
Of course.
But, again, it's not just about who's the better quarterback. It's about what's the cap number, how good is the rest of your roster. It's all about that context. So you would then have a Kellen Mond, Teddy Bridgewater battle with an offensive-minded head coach scheming the entire offseason to get the most out of those guys.
All right, let's examine that question, though. Taking a step back, let's examine that term. Because Kirk Cousins, while a talented young man, has one playoff win since he came here with a team that's constantly pretty much been flirting with being average. And look, I'm not putting that all on Kirk. But if Kirk was signed here Kirk wasn't signed here to keep you being competitive. He was signed here to be a final chip in the puzzle of a Lombardi Trophy being housed in the case at TCO Performance Center. And that has not happened. And so I can't get too caught up in, like, there just seem to be all of these cases made about, Kirk's the best quarterback this team's had since Tarkington, or he's the best
not the bar. Yeah,
or he's the best. But if you're not winning, it doesn't matter.
Correct.
And the other thing is, we also all want to jump in these pockets of, well, Kirk is this or Kirk is that. Kirk's stats are great. Kirk can't lead. Kirk can't. It's the whole package. It's the whole entire package of Kirk. And what has this team achieved with Kirk? And do I think that this team is capable of winning a Super Bowl if you give Kirk a new coach and GM? Well, I'd be curious to see that, Phil. This all comes back to what you've been saying is, I'm not curious to see that at the current price point. Like Kirk is the new car that got driven off the lot, and now I want to sell that car for the value that I paid when I drove it off said lot. Okay, that's gone.
Yes.
The blue book has changed, baby. It's changed. And so I feel like we're not having in this town good discussions beyond us, not to pat ourselves on the back too much here.
I mean, we have amazing discussions.
I feel like we're not having good discussions about like what this means if you're a Vikings fan, and not just for a championship, but even like pushing towards that.
Yes.
Right now, in my opinion, this team right now is nowhere near that. Like this is not like get rid of Kirk, get a new QB, and that's it. It's disintegrated to a point now where the entire Vikings car has taken on rust. And like we have to look at a new formula here for a new car, which means shifting directions. I feel like we're not accepting that.
Yep.
We're trying to torture this thing into being well, if they just do this and then you bring back Kirk. Just stop for a second.
Yes, and just to piggyback off that too, it's not just about who's the best quarterback. Like, yes, you'd always like the best quarterback, and if given the choice between a Patrick Mahomes and somebody else, like all things, you like give me the best quarterback and let's start there. But if you start to go down and peel the layers back, it's about the quarterback in relation to the roster, in relation to the coach, in relation to the cap, and all these things that go into building a team. And we've got 4 years of evidence here ever since the Vikings signed Cousins. And again, this isn't to put it all on Cousins. Do I think that there's some between-the-lines flaws to his leadership and to the way that he puts up numbers that are sort of deceiving? Absolutely. But if he was making $30 million less, if he was on a rookie scale contract, you would love Kirk Cousins as your quarterback because now you'd have a better team around him. You'd have a better. It'd be a lot more like what the Browns had with Baker Mayfield the last couple of years, where, all right, like there's some games where he looks amazing, he's pretty accurate, but he's very much not like a Patrick Mahomes type player, but they can put it on offensive line. They've got 3 or 4 extra players worth of salary cap space that they can bring in. It's not working in the current form on a championship level. And so it's not about blaming one person, but the whole thing doesn't work on a championship level. And so you have to start deconstructing it in some way this offseason.
Yes.
And the first place you're going to start is, why is one guy set to make 23 or 25% of the entire cap? Listen, it'd be one thing if he was and it was working. If one guy's making 23, 25% and you won 12 games and went to the NFC Championship game, okay, cool. All right, whatever. I guess it's not that big of a deal.
Yep.
But it is a big deal. When guys get hurt, when you're relying on Oli Udoh as a right guard, like it's not working. And so you have to deconstruct it. That's why I love this article.
Oh, it's great. And if I may broaden this out just a bit too much to the chagrin of some fans, this is also why I say, as well as he's played of late, you do have to look at Harrison Smith. He's making a ton of money for his age. You've got to look at Dalvin. Like, so I don't think that this is just a Kirk thing. I think that if you get a new administration to run this team, every one of those guys who makes a lot towards the cap, they don't have to be gone, but they have to be looked at. Like you can't just beyond Justin Jefferson, who is on a rookie contract. I don't think there's anybody on this roster, Phil, who I wouldn't take a look at.
Well, look at, you bring up Dalvin Cook, for instance, just, and these are so many side streets to go down here right now, but Dalvin Cook is about to be one of the highest paid running backs in the NFL. I think that contract goes up another kick in 2022. The Vikings opponent this weekend, the Los Angeles Rams, who have had a couple different running backs. Akers went down before the season. Todd Gurley a couple years ago.
Michelle now is like the running back. Right?
Yep. So they are number 1 in the NFL in yards per play. They're the number 1 offense in yards per play this season in the NFL. And their 2 running backs are third-round pick Darrell Henderson. He basically has split the yardage with Stoney Michel, who they traded for him before the season started. Like, right. They just kind of found running backs to go over 1,000 yards. So back to the actual trade here. Cousins to the Eagles for a first-round pick, or Cousins to anyone for a first-round pick, because Judd referenced the PFF article that has Cousins going to, and this is realistic trade ideas this offseason for quarterbacks. And it's Cousins to the Steelers for a 2022 first-round pick and a 2023 second-round pick, and the Vikings would clear out $35 million in cap space. So it's a similar principle. And then, what do you do in the short term to fill that spot? And Teddy Bridgewater is available. It all makes sense. Like, it very much makes sense. Here's my question to you guys. If they did this, if they traded him to Philadelphia or Pittsburgh, and they freed up $35 million in cap space, and they signed, let's say, Teddy Bridgewater for $8 million. So now you've got Bridgewater and Mond instead of Cousins. You got an offensive-minded head coach, let's say a Kellen Moore or a Byron Leftwich or maybe a Doug Peterson, and you've got $27 million extra to spend on the rest of your roster. The Vikings are 500 right now with 3 games to go. What would they be next year?
I think the bar at least is 500, because right now the Broncos, look at the Broncos. The Broncos are 7-7 right now, with Teddy basically leading them up to that point. He won't play this Sunday. He got a concussion, so he will be out. But essentially, the Broncos have been able to build a roster around Teddy Bridgewater and go 7-7 with a also iffy, kind of incompetent coach in Vic Fangio. But that team at the end of the day is 500, right? So if the Vikings were to plug in Teddy Bridgewater, you have more money, you sign a big-time guard, you go get a cornerback, you draft a home run defensive end player. Well, now all of a sudden, the path for me to be 500 through week 15, 16 games in 2022 seems pretty likely to me. I think that would be the floor of where that team could be. So I think it's completely plausible. And it would make a hell of a lot of sense. And if you get to figure out, too, if Kellen Mond is able to do that. If Kellen Moore or Byron Leftwich are these offensive gurus that can identify that, Teddy is that stopgap option. I like Teddy, but I can admit, I'm aware that Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback than Teddy. You won't fight me on that.
And it's like, that's the scoreboard people stop at. Well, Cousins better than it's no. What if the Vikings are better? That's a different situation,
right?
How good is this team right now if you have several more pieces in place? because Kirk is paid less? That's my question. Because this team has like when we say, when it all comes back to, which it inevitably does, it's not Kirk's fault. That is saying, and it's probably correct, that okay, it's not Kirk's fault, it's other people's fault. Well, those people are only playing because you can't pay other people who are more talented more. So if you had this current team right now with a quarterback who was, let's say, making 15 million, something like that, and then you brought in the guys to around him that were actually more talented players, I think the Vikings right now probably are sitting on what now? 7 wins, 6 wins. I think they're probably sitting on 9 wins right now. Because if you're going to say it's not Kirk's fault, then you're going to say that Kirk is making up for all of those around him whose fault it is, which I don't think that Kirk is. And I don't even think that's fair to ask.
Yes.
But I don't think it's a huge reach to say if you had a better line, if you had more defensive depth, if you could bring those things into this team right now and go back and play this schedule, I think you're probably about 9 wins right now.
Yeah, it's
Maybe 10.
It's hard to wrap your head around because people get stuck on, well, but Kirk's a better quarterback than Kellen Mond, or Kirk's a better quarterback than Teddy Bridgewater, or Kirk's a better quarterback than, insert your. But it's not just about who the better quarterback is. It's about roster construction. And
right.
I think I would rather go back. At some point, some team needs to draw a line in the sand and say, we aren't going to pay a good quarterback great money anymore.
That team's there right now.
There's you saying the Vikings or
Cleveland?
No,
the
Browns.
Cleveland's the team
Yes.
that can officially draw
the Vikings
that line.
the Vikings are there too. Like, they already did it, but the Vikings can learn from it and move forward. But you're right. If Cleveland says, I know we drafted him number 1 overall, but we're not going to give Baker Mayfield $35 million because it's gonna shipwreck our chances. I mean, the Vikings made this decision in 2017 going into 18, and I'd have to go look and see because I think Sam Bradford's cap number was pretty high. Case Keenum's was a backup number, so they may have been paying a lot to the overall quarterback position, but I don't think they were paying the same percentage as they're paying for Kirk Cousins. But they made a decision and said, we think that we can take a step forward by paying way more money to one guy at quarterback, even if it erodes the rest of the roster. And they were wrong. Like, the 4 years are proof.
Yeah,
they took a step back by saying, let's pay a good quarterback great money because we think that's the solution for the team.
Right.
Yes, they upgraded at quarterback. There is no question that Kirk Cousins is better than Case Keenum. But the Vikings are worse the last 4 years than they were in 2017 because of roster construction. And at some point, like I said, some team needs to draw a line in the sand, the Browns, the Vikings, and say, no more. We're not paying a good quarterback great money. We're going to create another market here. And that market is you're fine. You're a Teddy Bridgewater, and we're going to pay you like a Teddy Bridgewater. We're not going to pay you like a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry.
And as weird as this might sound, if you have a GM who replaces Rick, you also might say, I think this person's going to find the guy. Because if this goes back to Teddy, if this goes to a Teddy for a year or two type of guy, right? But you have faith that your GM can find the quarterback and especially draft one on a rookie contract, that changes this picture entirely. But that's the cycle in this town we've never escaped. It's always been veteran guys going to come in and save the day, or we're going to get, Kirk, and Kirk's going to be our guy because we can't find a guy. Mm-hmm. So if you finally get that, the magic formula, and you draft that guy, and now you have a team control quarterback for quite some time who's good, everything is different, and that's how you win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I also think the fans build more of an emotional connection to that guy too. Like, fans loved Dante when he was at his peak.
They
for
wanted
3
to
or
love
4
Teddy.
years,
Look at Declan.
Yeah,
they're my 2 favorite Vikings quarterbacks of all time.
Because he's your guy. You drafted him, and the fans like Cousins has always been this outside mercenary who comes in with no personality and puts up some hollow numbers. You don't need to pay $45
But a first round
million
pick
for that.
is also pretty damn intriguing too.
That's the thing.
We're
we're mostly examining the swap for Kirk and then an inferior quarterback for less money. But and you get a first round pick in either of these scenarios.
And I'm
It's a
not
no-brainer.
I'm not adverse to taking a step back. I just don't think that in this league now it's like a rebuild of 4 years or 5 years.
No.
But like if you bring in a new GM and coach and they make some significant changes and shed veterans and win 6 games, I'm also not going to complain.
Also,
like if there's a path here, I'm not going to complain about a path.
I know that these dominoes falling on the Bill Barnwell article is sort of predicated. This section is predicated on Aaron Rodgers staying with the Packers, but I don't think it has to be. I think there's a decent chance, at least a 50-50 chance, Rodgers gets traded to the AFC, and then you could even take a slight step back, hire a new coach, and still be the favorite in the NFC North if there's an Aaron Rodgers-less Packers team sitting next to you. Unless you think the Bears or the Lions are going to take
people love Dan Campbell now.
So, oh my God.
Give me a smoke.
Speculation.
There it is. That's what Reckless Speculation Thursday is all about, kids. Right there. To all who celebrate.
Just don't forget to mark it appropriately.
Yes.
Yes, it's
So-
marked appropriately.
Just don't forget to mark it appropriately.
On-air production meeting.
We also, every Thursday on this show, go back into the archives. Declan pulls old, incriminating tweets to be exposed here. All right. Who's taking it on the chin?
I'll start here because we're on a topic of Vikings quarterback. So I found a Declan take from 2013 going into that Vikings-Packer wildcard game. Ponder gives us the best opportunity to win, yes, but either way, the Pack haven't been preparing for Webb. This could work. And I know the Vikings abandoned their game plan with Joe Webb, but I believe my assumption that this could work with Joe Webb possibly beating the Packers at Lambeau is worth exposing.
You know what's funny,
That's
Declan,
great.
though,
It is great.
is you weren't altogether wrong, though.
The coaching staff was inflexible.
The first drive of that game, it was like, oh my God, Bill Musgrave's adjusted and adapted, and Joe Webb is being allowed to run things
Yeah.
like Joe Webb. And after that drive, it's like, now run the ponder, and he's like,
Run the Ponder.
Declan, I'm not gonna ding you bad for that
Well,
one.
there's other Ponder tweets I found that I have now bookmarked for future
Okay.
old tweets exposed. So there could be more incriminating Ponder takes
For
down the line.
2013 though, from you, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, and also that was at,
you were
I
young.
remember very well, I don't mind just humbly bragging. I was at a kegger at the U of M with my buddies at Como for that game. I remember vividly.
Nice.
So I that was pre-kegger moment, and I had that thought. So I'm very proud of myself for the mindset of that I was in to have that thought.
Bravo, Declan Goff.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Wasn't Joe Webb in the NFL for like 10
Yeah.
years or something? Like,
He was up in-
still in
he
the
was-
NFL like a year ago.
Last year with the Giants. Yeah.
Returning kicks, right?
Yeah, kind of amazing, actually.
Good for him. Great guy. Joe Webb.
Oh, great dude.
Really good.
Very
guy.
good dude.
Okay.
As far as I know, I should say. I just
Yeah.
clear that up.
Never don't assume with athletes. You always tell me that.
Yep.
All right. Judd Zolgad.
Yeah.
With your love of the Olympics and your love with former Wild players. I've said before, if I'm an NFL GM, I hold my breath during the Olympics, but Fletcher has to be happy that Granlund is getting this type of experience.
I
Your
remember
guy,
that
Granlund.
tweet. I remember that tweet. I believe I made that tweet in studio right after a Mackey and Judd episode
1:10 p.m. Yeah.
on the old station came to an end. And that is the Olympics at which Granlund looked so good. We all thought this has to continue. He looks so good. And then of course he came back here and it didn't continue.
What's his how's he
actually
been doing?
well. He's actually
Nice
playing-
season.
He's having a nice year with Nashville.
Yeah. he's
Nice
been
year.
playing
But like
well.
it's Granlund. Like that's who he is. Like he's a streaky player like this. He looks good. I wouldn't buy a lot of stock into it.
How old is he now? Is he 30 now? He can't be 30.
I think so. Yeah. He's probably 38, 31.
Feels like he's about 55, my age or something. But yeah, I know he's probably 30.
Okay, so we've had some Joe Webb optimism, some Granlund optimism.
I remember watching that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not.
Nothing too
I'm hoping we
bad
really
here.
get Phil here because
Nothing
I feel
too
like
bad.
so far it's.
I take some swings with my takes, and so there's a lot of incriminating
It
Right.
things
depends.
out there.
It depends if
Okay.
there's some
Let's
leverages involved.
let's go back in the time machine to 2009 from old Macadac.
First year on Twitter.
2009.
Two solid players, Rubio
I
and
even went-
Flynn.
Oh my
Let's
God, dude.
play June 2009.
Oh, so
Oh
much.
my God,
There's so
dude.
much.
Let's play.
There's so much at work here.
Oh my God.
There's the
Okay.
influence of the old station. Phil's former
Yes.
employer.
I was, yes. Hi, my name is Phil, and I worked at K-Fan from 2005 to 2010 and made weekly appearances on Paul
Phil
Allen's
worked at
radio
K-Fan.
show.
Oh,
This was-
sure.
This was full blind optimism. This is Paul Allen vernacular. It's everything here. Oh, God.
There's also a tweet from the press conference, too, that I found from the Rubio Flynn. No, not Rubio wasn't there, but from the David Kahn, Johnny Flynn press conference that I found as well. So there is some nice Wolves 2009 post-draft optimism from Phil Mackey from the infamous Steph Curry draft.
Always optimistic. I think you reach a certain point, like when you're like in your mid to late 20s, you're still pretty blindly optimistic about Minnesota sports.
Yep.
And then you start to get crusty. You start to get 30, early 30s, and you start to see Minnesota sports for all their flaws. And you still root, but there's no way that 2021 Phil Mackey would have.
I don't think you would ever use
Been this
"Let's play"
optimistic.
again.
Let's play.
Let's play.
Let's play. Oh God! All right, I think I win or lose or whatever.
Congratulations. Yeah, that was
Brutal, dude.
That was hard. That was hard tape to go back and watch right there, Phil.
You know what I need? I need risk management for my takes. And that's
Yes,
where
you do.
Federated comes in if you're a business owner. Federated's been around for over 100 years. They're based in Owatonna, and they've been helping Minnesota business owners, not with their takes, but with just making sure that you're protected against potential unforeseen risks. Weather-related risks, for instance, this time of year that could sneak up on you. They're all about giving you a better night's sleep as a business owner so you can rest easy mentally. Find out more at federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. All right. How was that for a Reckless Speculation Thursday?
Reckless speculation.
Gall
That was
dang it.
fantastic.
Gall dang it. Tomorrow on Christmas Eve, you're going to find a throwback Royce and Mackey episode that we're going to dust off from 11 years ago, the day that Randy Moss returned to the Vikings while we were doing a show from the plaza at Target Field before a Twins-Yankees playoff game. Peak Minnesota sports, optimism, joy, Twins versus Yankees, let's get it. Randy Moss is coming back to save the day, and you can hear what that sounded
Let's
like
play.
11 years ago. Let's play. All right. See you guys. Happy holidays.